Dive into The Anatomy of a Broken Heart, a captivating contemporary romance where graduate art student Oliver Chen, the chronic paint spiller and panic complimenter, develops a forbidden crush on his brilliant, emotionally guarded advanced painting professor, Diana Ashworth. Diana, 15 years his senior, is reeling from a messy 2-year-long divorce and channeling her heartbreak into a massive, visceral canvas. The Anatomy of a Broken Heart and How to Sketch It, Chapter 1, Life Drawing Gone Wrong. The first time Oliver Chen spilled paint on Professor Diana Ashworth, it was an accident. The second time was also an accident. The third time, she started to suspect he was either deeply incompetent or possibly cursed. "Mr. Chen," she said, looking down at the cerulean blue splatter now decorating her vintage Doc Martens, "I'm beginning to think you have a personal vendetta against my footwear." Oliver stood frozen, holding the treacherous paint cup like it had personally betrayed him, which, to be fair, it had. "I am so sorry, Professor. I swear I'm not usually this much of a disaster. It's just..." He gestured helplessly at the easel, the canvas, the general chaos of his workspace. "Physics hates me?" Diana raised an eyebrow. She had perfected this expression over her 42 years, and it could convey anything from mild amusement to withering disdain. Right now, it landed somewhere in between. "Physics hates you? Specifically gravity. We have a contentious relationship." The corner of her mouth twitched. Oliver noticed because he'd been noticing everything about Diana Ashworth since the semester started 3 weeks ago. The way she always wore silver rings on her left hand, the ring finger conspicuously bare. The streak of premature silver in her dark hair that she never bothered to dye. The fact that she took her coffee black and drank approximately 6 cups during their 4-hour studio sessions, as if caffeine could fill whatever void existed inside her. He'd been noticing in the way that art students notice things, cataloging details, studying shadows, memorizing the precise angle of her jawline when she tilted her head at a particularly terrible painting. It was purely academic, aesthetic appreciation, the same way he might admire a Caravaggio or a perfectly ripe avocado. This was what he told himself anyway. "Clean it up," Diana said, already turning away. "And Mr. Chen, next class, perhaps consider wearing shoes with closed toes, for your own safety." Oliver looked down at his paint-splattered Converse. Right, good plan. As she walked away, her teaching assistant Mira appeared at his elbow. "Smooth, Oliver, really smooth." "I don't want to hear it." "Was that the sound of your dignity leaving the building?" "Mira, I will paint your entire sculpture collection neon pink." "You wouldn't dare." Mira paused. "Also, you're staring at her ass." Oliver jerked his gaze away. "I am not. That's completely... I was looking at the composition of the room." "Uh-huh. Sure." Mira grinned. She was a third-year sculpture major with pink hair and the emotional intelligence of a therapist, which made her both Oliver's best friend and most persistent tormentor. "Listen, I know Professor Ashworth has that whole tortured artist thing going on, but maybe aim for someone who isn't, our professor." "I don't have a thing for her." "Oliver, you literally just spilled paint on her for the 3rd time. Either you have a thing for her or you need to see a neurologist." "Maybe both," Oliver muttered. The truth was, Oliver hadn't meant to develop feelings for his advanced painting mentor. He'd started the MFA program at Brookfield Arts Academy with a clear plan: keep his head down, develop his portfolio, and maybe figure out what he wanted to say as an artist besides, "I have anxiety and I'm very good at realistic portraits of my cat." Then he'd walked into Diana Ashworth's studio. She'd been standing in front of a massive canvas, completely absorbed, a brush in one hand and what looked like a palette knife in the other. The painting was chaos, intense slashes of crimson and burnt umber, with fragments of newspaper collaged throughout. It looked like Heartbreak rendered in physical form. "It's a divorce," she'd said without turning around, somehow sensing his presence. "Mine, specifically. I'm calling it legal dissolution of everything that mattered." Oliver had no idea how to respond to that. "It's visceral?" She'd finally turned, and he'd gotten his first clear look at her. Exhausted eyes, paint-stained fingers, an expression that suggested she'd forgotten how to smile sometime around 2019. "That's diplomatic of you. Most people just say it looks upset." Well, yeah, but upset can be good. Upset is honest. Something had shifted in her expression then. You're the new MFA student, Oliver Chen. That's me, chronic spiller of paint, apparently. And she'd almost smiled. Almost. Chapter 2, The Wounded Painter Society. If Brookfield Arts Academy had a motto, it would be Suffering for Your Arts Since 1952. The building itself was a converted textile factory in Providence, Rhode Island, all exposed brick and drafty windows that either wouldn't open or wouldn't close. The heating was theoretical, the coffee was terrible, the students were brilliantly neurotic. Oliver loved it. His studio space was a converted closet on the third floor, just big enough for an easel, a stool, and his growing collection of failed paintings. He'd taken to arriving early, 6 a.m., when the building was still quiet and the morning light came through the east windows like a blessing. This particular morning, he found Diana already there. She was in the main studio, standing motionless in front of that same divorce painting. She hadn't changed clothes from yesterday. Her coffee mug sat empty on a nearby table. "Professor Ashworth?" Oliver ventured carefully. "Did you sleep here?" She blinked, as if coming back from somewhere far away. "What? No, I went home." A pause. "For a few hours." "That doesn't count as going home. That counts as a nap with extra steps." Diana finally looked at him. Her eyes were bloodshot. "Mr. Chen, are you lecturing me on healthy sleep habits?" "I would never. I'm just observing that you look like you've been fighting your canvas and the canvas won." "The canvas always wins," she said, but there was something hollow in her voice. Oliver set down his bag. This felt like dangerous territory, the space between student and teacher, between concern and overstepping. But he'd spent enough time with Diana over the past month to recognize the signs. This wasn't just artistic frustration. This was something darker. "Want to talk about it?" he offered. "No." "Want to pretend to talk about art theory while actually talking about it?" This time she actually smiled. It was small and brief, like a bird that hadn't quite remembered how to fly, but it was there. "You're persistent, Mr. Chen." "Oliver, and yeah, it's one of my more annoying qualities." She sighed, running a hand through her hair. More silver caught the morning light. "My ex-husband is getting remarried. I found out last night. Through Facebook, of all things." "Ah," Oliver wasn't sure what the protocol was here. Hug her? Offer to key the guy's car? Make sympathetic noises? That's terrible. "The worst part is she's 28, Diana laughed, but it sounded like breaking glass. 28, Oliver. "I have sweaters older than her. To be fair, you have really good sweaters." She stared at him. "Did you just—" "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. That was completely inappropriate. I panic compliment when I don't know what to say." "You panic compliment? It's a thing, a weird thing, a thing I should probably mention to my therapist." Diana shook her head, but she was still smiling. "You're very strange, Mr. Chen." "Oliver," he corrected again. "And yes, I'm aware." She turned back to her painting. In the growing morning light, Oliver could see new layers she'd added, white marks that looked like redactions or maybe snow, covering something, hiding it. The divorce was finalized 2 years ago. "I thought I was fine. I sold the house, moved into that absurd loft downtown, threw myself into my work. I thought I'd moved on." She touched the canvas lightly. "But apparently, I'm still here, still upset, still painting the same goddamn thing." Oliver moved closer, studying the work. "Maybe you're not painting the divorce anymore." "No? No. I think you're painting what comes after. The anger, yeah, but also the space it left behind. That's what these white marks are, right? The empty spaces where something used to be." Diana was quiet for a long moment. "You know, for someone who spills paint constantly, you're surprisingly insightful. I contain multitudes. Mostly anxiety, but some multitudes." She laughed, an actual laugh, not a bitter one. Oliver felt absurdly proud. "Thank you," Diana said. "For this, for not—" She gestured vaguely. "Most people either treat me like I'm broken or avoid the subject entirely. You're the first person in months to just be normal about it." "Well, my parents have been divorced twice each, so I'm basically a child of divorce bingo. I've got experience." Twice each? It's complicated. There was a period in my teens where I needed a flowchart to figure out who was coming to dinner. Diana shook her head. Your family sounds chaotic. Oh, catastrophically so, but they mean well. Oliver glanced at his watch. Speaking of which, I should probably actually do some work before everyone else shows up. Professor Ashworth... Diana, she interrupted, if we're going to have 6 a.m. conversations about my failed marriage, you should probably call me Diana. Diana, Oliver repeated, trying not to show how much he liked the way her name felt in his mouth. Try to get some actual sleep tonight, okay? I'll take it under advisement. Chapter 3. Titian and Turpentine. The thing about falling for your professor, Oliver learned, was that it happened in small increments. A smile here, a moment of shared understanding there. The way Diana's whole face changed when she talked about pre-Raphaelite painters, animated in a way she never was discussing her own work. It was a death by 1,000 paper cuts, except the paper cuts were moments of casual intimacy, and the death was his ability to focus on anything else. You're doing it again, Mira observed one afternoon. They were in the student gallery, supposedly preparing for the mid-semester exhibition. Oliver was supposed to be hanging his paintings. Instead, he was watching Diana across the room, gesturing emphatically while explaining something to another student. Doing what? The thing where you stare at her like she's the Mona Lisa and you're trying to figure out what she's smiling about. She's not smiling. She almost never smiles. Exactly my point. Mira handed him a hammer. Oliver, I love you, but this is getting pathetic. I know. She's our professor. I know. She's also clearly going through some stuff. Messy divorce, remember? I know. Oliver finally took the hammer. I know all of this, Mira. I'm not an idiot. I'm not going to do anything about it. He struggled for words. I'm just existing in her proximity and occasionally having feelings about it. That's called pining, my friend. I prefer aesthetic appreciation from afar. You would. The truth was, Oliver had always been good at wanting things he couldn't have. In high school, it was a straight best friend named Jake who only saw him as a study buddy. In undergrad, it was a senior sculpture major who was already engaged. Now it was Diana, whose emotional unavailability was written in every line of her body language. He had a type, apparently. The type was unavailable. What are you two gossiping about? Simone, another MFA student, appeared with a box of wine glasses for the exhibition opening. Oliver's tragic crush on Professor Ashworth, Mira announced cheerfully. That's not tragic, Simone said. That's adorable. Also extremely obvious. Is it really that obvious? Oliver asked with growing horror. Oliver, you once spent 20 minutes debating the symbolism of her outfit choices. That was a legitimate discussion about color theory. She was wearing a black sweater. It was a very significant black sweater. Simone patted his shoulder sympathetically. Sweetie, you've got it bad. I hate both of you, Oliver muttered. No, you don't, Mira said. You love us because we're the only ones who tolerate your nonsense. This was true, so Oliver didn't argue. Instead, he finally started hanging his paintings, a series of portraits he'd been working on all semester. They were studies of people in transition. Someone moving houses, boxes half-packed, a woman cutting her hair, a man standing in an empty wedding venue. Diana materialized at his elbow as he was adjusting the gallery lights. These are good, Oliver. He nearly fell off the ladder. Jesus! Sorry. She didn't sound sorry. But really, these are much stronger than your earlier work. There's an emotional honesty here that was missing before. Oliver climbed down carefully, hyper-aware of her proximity. She smelled like turpentine and something floral, her shampoo maybe. Thanks. I've been thinking about what you said, about painting the spaces things leave behind. Diana studied the portraits more closely. These are all about loss, aren't they? Or change, at least. Same thing sometimes. She glanced at him, something unreadable in her expression. Yes, sometimes it is. They stood there in silence, looking at Oliver's paintings. It should have been awkward, but somehow it wasn't. Just two people standing in a gallery, existing in the same space. "I'm getting divorced," Diana said suddenly. Oliver blinked. "I know, you mentioned." "No, I mean," she gestured frustratedly, "I'm still getting divorced, emotionally. I thought it was done, but it's not. It's like this ongoing process of figuring out who I am without him, without us, and it's exhausting." "That sounds exhausting," Oliver agreed. "Marcus, my ex, we were together for 15 years, married for 12. I was a completely different person when we met. I was 27, fresh out of my MFA, convinced I was going to change the art world." She laughed bitterly. "I had so much certainty then, about everything." "What happened?" "Life happened. We wanted different things. He wanted kids. I wanted my career. He wanted stability. I wanted to spend 6 months in Berlin on a fellowship. We tried to compromise, but compromises just meant both of us being miserable instead of one of us." Diana wrapped her arms around herself. "And then one day I woke up and realized we were just existing next to each other, not actually together." Oliver wanted to say something profound, something that would take away the pain he could hear in her voice. Instead, he said, "That really sucks." Diana looked at him, startled, and then laughed. "Yes, Oliver, it really, really sucks. For what it's worth, I think you're pretty great without him. Certainty is overrated anyway." "You think so?" "I know so. Certainty is just fear wearing confidence as a mask." Diana stared at him for a long moment. "How old are you, Oliver?" 26. Why?" "Because you're very young and somehow very wise, and I can't figure out how those two things coexist. I had a lot of therapy in my early 20s. That, and I read too much philosophy when I should have been studying anatomy. It shows, in your work, I mean." Diana gestured to the portraits. "There's an understanding here of human complexity. Not many artists your age can capture that." Oliver felt his face heating. Thank you. That means a lot coming from you." "I mean it. You're talented, Oliver. Don't waste it. Paint what you think you should paint. Paint what scares you." "What if what scares me is being honest?" "Especially that." Chapter 4. The Exhibition Disaster. The mid-semester exhibition opening was, by all objective measures, a disaster. First, the heating broke, turning the gallery into an icebox. Then, someone's video installation shorted out the electrical on the second floor. And finally, spectacularly, one of the sculpture major's pieces, a precariously balanced assemblage of found objects, collapsed, narrowly missing the department chair. "This is fine," Mira said, watching the chaos unfold. "This is totally fine." "The fire department is here," Oliver observed. "Okay, maybe it's not fine." Through it all, Diana remained surprisingly calm. She directed traffic, soothed frayed nerves, and somehow convinced the fire marshal that no, the building was not structurally unsound. This was just experimental art in its natural habitat. Oliver watched her work the room with grudging admiration. This was Diana in her element, competent, commanding, completely in control. It was attractive in a way that made him deeply uncomfortable with himself. "Stop staring," Simone hissed, appearing with 2 glasses of cheap wine. "You're being obvious again." "I can't help it." "She's like a disaster management goddess. You have such specific taste in women. Tell me about it." The evening limped along. Despite the disasters, people actually seemed to be looking at the art, which was the point. Oliver stood awkwardly next to his paintings, fielding questions and trying not to look like he wanted to hide under a table. "These are quite good," a woman in an expensive coat said, studying his work. "Very raw. Are they autobiographical?" "Aren't all portraits autobiographical?" Oliver deflected. "Clever." She handed him a card. "I run a gallery in Newport. Send me more work when you have it." Oliver took the card in a daze. A gallery owner, an actual gallery owner, was interested in his work. "Congratulations," Diana said, appearing beside him after the woman left. She'd changed into a different black sweater, this one with silver threads woven through it. Patricia Goodwin doesn't give her card to just anyone. I think I'm going to throw up. Please don't. We've had enough disasters tonight. Diana handed him a glass of wine. You should be proud, Oliver. This is what we all work toward. Recognition, validation. Why doesn't it feel good? Because you're an artist, Diana said dryly. We're psychologically incapable of accepting success without immediately sabotaging it with self-doubt. Oliver laughed despite himself. Is that what they teach in the advanced courses? No, that's just trauma, but she was smiling. They stood together, watching the exhibition chaos slowly wind down. Oliver was acutely aware of how close Diana was standing, close enough that he could feel the warmth of her body in the freezing gallery. Can I ask you something? Diana said suddenly. Sure. Why art? Why put yourself through this? She gestured at the disaster zone around them, when you're clearly talented enough to do something more stable. Oliver considered the question. Because nothing else makes sense to me the way art does. Like, the world is chaos, right? People are confusing and feelings are complicated, and most of the time I have no idea what I'm doing. But when I'm painting, there's this moment where everything clicks into place, where I can take all that chaos and make it into something intentional, something that means something. Diana was looking at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. That's a good answer. Yeah? Yeah, she took a sip of wine. Most people say something pretentious about capturing truth or challenging perspectives. You're honest about it. It's refreshing. I try to be honest. It's easier than remembering what lies I've told. Is that why your paintings are so revealing? Oliver felt exposed suddenly, like Diana could see straight through him. Maybe. Is that bad? No, it's brave. Diana set down her wine glass. I should circulate, play nice with the donors. But Oliver, thank you. For what? For reminding me why we do this. She walked away before Oliver could respond, leaving him standing alone with a gallery owner's card in his pocket and a feeling in his chest that was probably hope, but felt a lot like fear. Chapter 5. Coffee and Complicated Feelings. The thing about Providence in November was that it was aggressively, bitterly cold. The kind of cold that made you question your life choices and consider moving to Florida. Oliver questioned his life choices daily, usually while walking from his apartment to the studio at 6 a.m. He'd fallen into a routine with Diana, these early morning sessions where they'd overlap in the studio, not exactly working together, but existing in parallel. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they didn't. It was comfortable in a way that probably wasn't appropriate between a professor and student, but Oliver had stopped caring about appropriate somewhere around the third week. This particular morning, Diana was already there, but she wasn't painting. She was sitting on the floor of the studio, surrounded by photographs. Diana? Oliver set down his coffee. You okay? She looked up, and Oliver's stomach dropped. She'd been crying. I'm fine, she said automatically, then seemed to realize how unconvincing that was. I'm not fine. Marcus came by last night to pick up the last of his things. It was, her voice cracked. It was so final, you know? Seeing him box up 15 years into his car, he could barely look at me. Oliver sat down beside her without asking. The photographs, he realized, were from her marriage. Weddings, vacations, ordinary moments, an entire life documented in glossy paper. What are you doing with these? He asked gently. I don't know. I found them while he was packing. He didn't want them, which somehow makes it worse. Diana picked up a photo. Her and Marcus on a beach somewhere, both of them young and laughing. Look at us. We were so happy. Or we thought we were. I can't even tell anymore. Maybe you were happy then. Maybe people can be happy and still not be right for each other. How did you get so wise, Oliver? I told you, extensive therapy. He pointed to another photo. Is that Paris? Our honeymoon. We spent 3 days at the Louvre. Marcus hated museums, but he went because I wanted to. Diana's voice was soft with memory. I thought that meant something. That love was going to museums in hate? Maybe it did mean something. Maybe it just wasn't enough. Diana leaned back against the wall, still holding the photograph. Do you believe in marriage, Oliver? That's a heavy question for 6 a.m. Humor me. Oliver thought about it. I think I believe in trying, in choosing someone and keeping choosing them, even when it's hard. But I also think sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes people grow in different directions, and that's not anyone's fault. Very diplomatic. I'm secretly running for office. Diana laughed wetly. You're ridiculous. It's one of my best qualities. They sat in silence for a while, the photographs spread around them like the wreckage of someone else's life, which, Oliver supposed, they were. I slept with someone, Diana said suddenly. Oliver's brain short-circuited. Oh. Last week, a colleague from another department. It was terrible. Not because of him, he was perfectly nice, but the whole time I just kept thinking about how different it was from Marcus, how strange it felt to be touched by someone new. Oliver had no idea what to say to that. His brain was stuck on Diana had sex with someone and refusing to move past it. I'm sorry, Diana continued. That was wildly inappropriate to share with a student. We've kind of blown past appropriate, haven't we? I suppose we have. She looked at him, really looked at him, and Oliver felt pinned by her gaze. You're a good listener, Oliver. Do people tell you that? Sometimes. Usually right before they dump all their trauma on me. Is that what I'm doing? A little bit. Diana smiled, a real smile, the kind that reached her eyes. You can tell me to shut up any time. I don't want you to shut up, Oliver said, and meant it. I like talking to you, even about the heavy stuff. Maybe especially about the heavy stuff. Why? Because I'm falling for you, Oliver thought. Because every moment with you feels important. Because I want to know everything about you, even the broken parts, especially the broken parts. Because you're interesting, he said instead. Because most people don't let themselves be this honest. Or this pathetic. You're not pathetic. You're human. Diana studied him for a long moment. Oliver, can I ask you something? Sure. Are you, she hesitated, are you interested in anyone? Romantically, I mean? Oliver's heart stopped. This was dangerous territory. Why do you ask? Because you're young and talented and frankly quite attractive, and I haven't seen you with anyone. It made me curious. You think I'm attractive? Diana's eyes widened, like she just realized what she said. I meant objectively, in an aesthetic sense. Right, objectively. Oliver, yes, he interrupted, I'm interested in someone, but it's complicated. Why complicated? Because it's you, he wanted to say, because I know it's impossible and inappropriate and a terrible idea, but I can't stop thinking about you anyway. They're unavailable, he said carefully. Wrong time, wrong circumstances, all the usual reasons things don't work out. Diana looked at him for a long moment, and Oliver could swear she knew, could see right through his careful deflection. That's a shame, she said finally. I hope they figure it out, that you figure it out. Yeah, me too. Chapter 6. The Almost. Thanksgiving break arrived like a reprieve. Most students scattered to their families, leaving the studio building nearly empty. Oliver stayed. His parents were somewhere in California, his mother's third marriage apparently going strong, and the thought of navigating those particular family dynamics made staying in Providence seem appealing. He didn't expect Diana to stay too. He found her on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, alone in the studio, staring at her divorce painting. She'd been working on it for months now, layering and scraping and layering again. It was starting to look less like anger and more like archaeology, all these strata of feeling preserved in paint. I thought you'd gone home, Oliver said. Diana didn't turn around. No home to go to. Well, no family. Marcus's parents were mine too, for 15 years. Now they're his again. She laughed without humor. That's what divorce is. Dividing up not just things, but people, relationships. Entire portions of your life. That sounds lonely. It is. Oliver set down his bag. I'm making Thanksgiving dinner tomorrow. Well, attempting to make Thanksgiving dinner. It'll probably be a disaster, but you're welcome to join me. You know, if the alternative is spending it alone eating cereal. Diana finally turned. You're cooking Thanksgiving dinner? The term cooking is generous. I'm assembling ingredients and hoping for the best, but I've got a turkey breast and ambitions. That's very sweet, Oliver, but no buts. It's Thanksgiving. You need to eat something that isn't coffee and sadness. I don't just eat coffee and sadness. Diana, I have seen your lunch. It's crackers and spite. She smiled despite herself. Crackers and Spite sounds like a terrible indie band. See, you need proper food to maintain your wit. Oliver pulled out his phone. I'm texting you my address. Show up at 2 p.m., bring wine if you want, but mainly bring yourself. Oliver. Professor Ashworth, are you really going to turn down a student's invitation to Thanksgiving dinner? That seems pedagogically unsound. That's not how pedagogy works. Close enough. Diana looked at him for a long moment, something shifting in her expression. Okay. Yeah, 2 p.m. I'll bring wine. Perfect. Fair warning, I'm a terrible cook. I gathered that from the phrase turkey breast and ambitions. Oliver grinned. We're going to have a great, terrible Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving Day dawned cold and clear. Oliver woke up with the distinct feeling that he'd made a terrible mistake. Inviting Diana to his apartment, his personal space, outside the safe context of the studio, felt like crossing a line he couldn't uncross. But it was too late now. He'd invited her, she'd accepted, and backing out would be awkward and cruel. So instead, he panic-cooked. By 2 p.m., his tiny apartment looked like a bomb had gone off in a Williams-Sonoma. There was a turkey breast of questionable doneness, potatoes that were definitely burned, and green beans that looked traumatized. This is fine, Oliver told himself. This is absolutely fine. Diana arrived at 2, holding 2 bottles of wine and wearing jeans. Oliver had never seen her in jeans before. It was unfairly attractive. Hey, he said, trying not to stare. Come in. Ignore the disaster. Diana surveyed the chaos with an expression somewhere between amusement and concern. Oliver, what happened here? Thanksgiving happened, aggressively. Did you declare war on the potatoes? They started it. Diana laughed, that real, genuine laugh that Oliver had learned was rare and precious. Okay, kitchen crisis. I can work with this. Move. You don't have to. Oliver, I may be emotionally unavailable and going through a crisis, but I can cook. Let me help. So they cooked together, or rather Diana cooked, while Oliver followed instructions and tried not to combust from proximity. She moved around his tiny kitchen with efficiency, salvaging his disasters and creating something that actually smelled edible. Where did you learn to cook? Oliver asked, watching her season the traumatized green beans back to life. My grandmother. She was Italian, from the insistence on feeding people as love school of thought. Diana smiled at the memory. She taught me that cooking is just problem-solving with heat. You assess, adapt, and hope for the best. That sounds like painting. Everything sounds like painting when you're an artist. It's our fatal flaw. They worked in companionable silence, the space between them charged with something Oliver couldn't name. Every time their hands brushed, reaching for the same utensil, he felt it like electricity. Finally, miraculously, they sat down to something resembling a Thanksgiving meal. This is actually good, Oliver said, surprised. Don't sound so shocked. I'm shocked at myself, not you. You're clearly a wizard. Diana raised her wine glass. To wizardry and salvage dinners. To new traditions, Oliver added, clinking his glass against hers. They ate and talked, the conversation flowing easily. Diana told him about her grandmother, her early years as an artist, the time she accidentally set a studio on fire during her MFA. Oliver told her about his chaotic family, his first art show, which nobody attended, his deep and abiding fear of failure. I don't think you need to worry about failure, Diana said. You're too talented for that. Talent isn't enough. There are thousands of talented artists. What if I don't have anything important to say? Oliver, look at me. Diana waited until he met her eyes. You have something to say. I see it in your work. This fear that you're not enough, not important enough, that's just fear. It's not truth. How do you know? Because I'm looking at your work, really looking, and I see you in it. Your compassion, your understanding of human complexity, your ability to find beauty in broken things. She paused. That matters. You matter. The way she said it, looking directly at him, made Oliver's chest tight. Thank you. Thank you. I mean it. They finished dinner. Oliver made coffee, which was somehow both too strong and too weak. They moved to his tiny living room, sitting on his thrift store couch, and talked about everything and nothing. Somewhere around the third glass of wine, Diana's professional veneer had completely fallen away. She was just Diana, funny and sharp and a little bit sad. Can I tell you something? She said, her words slightly soft with wine. Always. I haven't felt like myself in years. Not since the marriage started falling apart, maybe even before that. I became this person I didn't recognize, bitter, closed off, going through the motions. She looked at Oliver. But these past few months, talking with you, I've started to feel like myself again. Like there's a person under all this damage. Oliver's heart was pounding. You were always there, under the damage. How do you know? Because I see you. Every morning in the studio, every conversation. I see you, Diana. Not the divorce or the damage, you. Diana had moved closer, or maybe Oliver had. The space between them had narrowed to almost nothing. Oliver, she said softly, we shouldn't. I know. This would be a terrible idea. I know. I'm your professor. You're my student. The ethics are... I know, Oliver said again. I know all the reasons this can't happen. I've listed them to myself approximately 1,000 times. But, Diana's voice was barely a whisper, but I can't stop thinking about you anyway. The air between them was charged, impossible. Diana's eyes were dark, her face so close Oliver could count her freckles. We can't, she said, but she didn't move away. I know. Oliver. And then she was kissing him, or he was kissing her, or they were meeting in the middle. It was soft and tentative and tasted like wine and terrible decisions. For one perfect moment, Oliver let himself have this, let himself kiss Diana Ashworth in his tiny apartment on Thanksgiving. Let himself believe that sometimes inappropriate things could also be right. Then Diana pulled back. I'm sorry, she said immediately. I shouldn't have. Don't apologize. Oliver, I'm your professor. I'm 15 years older than you. I'm a mess. This is the best Thanksgiving I've ever had. Diana laughed despite herself, but there were tears in her eyes. You're not making this easier. I'm not trying to make it easier. I'm trying to be honest. Oliver took a shaky breath. Diana, I know this is complicated. I know all the reasons it can't work, but I have feelings for you, real feelings, and I don't think they're going away just because they're inconvenient. Oliver, you don't have to say anything. You don't have to feel the same way. I needed you to know. Diana stood up, wrapping her arms around herself. I should go. Diana, I need to think. We both need to think. She grabbed her coat. Thank you for dinner. For everything. I need space. And she left, taking all the air in the room with her. Oliver sat on his couch, his lips still tingling from the kiss, and wondered if he'd just ruined everything. Chapter 7. The Aftermath. The week after Thanksgiving was torture. Diana avoided him. Not obviously. She still came to studio sessions, still gave feedback on his work, but the easy intimacy they developed was gone, replaced by careful professionalism. Oliver tried to act normal. He failed spectacularly. You look like someone kicked your puppy, Mira observed. What happened? Nothing. Oliver, you're literally sighing while mixing paint. That's not nothing. I maybe told Diana how I feel about her. Mira's eyes went wide. You what? And then she maybe kissed me? She what? And then she left, and now she won't talk to me. Mira sat down heavily. Okay, let me process this. She took a breath. Our professor, our emotionally unavailable, going through a messy divorce professor, kissed you? It wasn't just her, it was mutual. Oliver, what were you thinking? I wasn't, that's the problem. Or maybe the problem is that I was thinking, just not about the practical stuff, just about how much He stopped. It doesn't matter. It's over. Is it? Oliver looked at Diana across the studio. She was critiquing another student's work, her face carefully neutral. But he could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she wasn't quite looking in his direction. Yeah, he said quietly. I think it is. But it wasn't over. 3 days later, Diana asked Oliver to stay after the studio session. We need to talk, she said once everyone else had left. Oliver's stomach nodded. Okay. Diana paced, not looking at him. I've been thinking about what happened, about us.
About this, she gestured helplessly, situation. Diana, let me finish. She finally stopped, meeting his eyes. What happened on Thanksgiving was unprofessional of me. You're my student. I'm your mentor. The power dynamic alone makes this ethically questionable. I know. But, Diana took a shaky breath, but I can't stop thinking about you either. About that kiss. About these past few months and how much lighter I felt since you came into my life. Oliver's heart was thundering. So what are you saying? I'm saying this is a terrible idea. That we should be sensible and professional and forget this ever happened. But, Diana smiled sadly. But I don't want to be sensible. I'm tired of being sensible. Sensible is what kept me in a dying marriage for 3 years too long. Sensible is what has me alone at 42, painting the same heartbreak over and over. Diana, I'm saying, she took another breath, steeling herself. I'm saying that the semester ends in 3 weeks. You won't be my student anymore. We can't do this now, but, she met his eyes. Maybe we could then? Oliver felt like the ground had shifted under his feet. Are you saying what I think you're saying? I'm saying, wait for me. 3 weeks. And then we can figure this out. Whatever this is. You want me to wait for you? I know it's asking a lot. I know I'm a mess and complicated and probably not worth. Diana. Oliver crossed the space between them. He didn't touch her, but he stood close enough to feel her breath. You're worth waiting for. You're worth whatever time it takes. She looked up at him, and Oliver saw everything in her face. Hope and fear and possibility. 3 weeks, she said. 3 weeks, Oliver agreed. Chapter 8. The Home Stretch. The last 3 weeks of the semester were simultaneously the longest and shortest of Oliver's life. He painted. God, did he paint. All the feelings he couldn't express, all the hope and fear and desperate wanting, it went into his work. He started a new series, Portraits of People Waiting. People in airports, in hospital waiting rooms, standing at bus stops. All of them caught in that suspended animation of anticipation. Diana noticed. These are extraordinary, she said during his final critique. They were surrounded by other students, everything carefully professional, but Oliver could feel the weight of what wasn't being said. You've found your voice, Oliver. This work is mature, honest, vulnerable. It's everything an artist should aspire to. Thank you, Professor Ashworth. Their eyes met. 3 more days. The final exhibition was scheduled for the last Friday of the semester. Oliver's waiting portraits were hung in the main gallery, alongside work from the other MFA students. The opening was packed. Faculty, students, local art collectors, everyone drinking cheap wine and pretending to understand experimental video installations.
Oliver stood nervously next to his paintings, fielding compliments and business cards. Patricia Goodwin, the gallery owner from Newport, came back. "I want to give you a show," she said. "Small, February or March. Are you interested?" Yes, absolutely yes." "Good. Call me after the holidays. We'll discuss details." Oliver was floating. His first gallery show. This was everything he'd been working toward. But his eyes kept finding Diana across the room. She was wearing a dress, deep burgundy, elegant, nothing like her usual paint-stained studio wear. She looked beautiful and distant, and Oliver wanted nothing more than to cross the room and tell her about the gallery show, share this moment with her. 3 more days felt like an eternity. The semester officially ended on a Monday. Oliver turned in his final portfolio, sat through his last required critique, and walked out of the building as a student for the last time. He checked his phone. "Meet me at the studio, 8 p.m. Oliver spent the intervening hours alternating between excitement and terror. This was happening. They were actually doing this. He arrived at 7, too nervous to be fashionably late. Diana was already there, standing in front of her divorce painting, but it looked different. She'd painted over the intense reds and blacks with something softer, blues and purples and hints of gold. It was still about loss, but now it was about transformation, too. "Hi," Oliver said. Diana turned. She looked nervous, too, which was oddly comforting. "Hi. Your painting is different." "I finished it, finally. Turns out I wasn't painting the divorce. I was painting what came after, the space where something new could grow. It's beautiful. It's honest." Diana took a step toward him. "I'm not good at this, Oliver. I'm out of practice and scared, and I have so much baggage you could pack for a year-long trip. I know. I'm probably going to mess this up, push you away when things get real, overthink everything, compare you to Marcus, even though that's not fair. I know." "So why," Diana's voice cracked, "why would you want this? Want me?" Oliver closed the distance between them. "Because you're brilliant and funny, and you see the world in ways that make me want to paint it. Because you're honest about being broken, and that's braver than pretending to be fine. Because these past few months with you have been the best of my life, even though we were just talking about art and divorce and all the complicated stuff. Oliver. Because I'm falling in love with you, Diana. Maybe have been since you almost smiled at me that first day. And I know it's complicated and messy, and we're probably going to have to figure out a lot of stuff, but I don't care. I want complicated if it means I get to be with you." Diana was crying now, but she was also smiling, that real, full smile that transformed her entire face. "I'm falling for you too." "I've been trying not to, but I am. So what do we do about it?" "This," Diana said, and kissed him. It was different from Thanksgiving, less desperate, more certain, like they'd both stopped fighting and decided to just be. When they finally pulled apart, Oliver was grinning like an idiot. "So, we're doing this?" he asked. "We're doing this," Diana touched his face gently. "Fair warning, I'm going to be a disaster girlfriend, emotionally complicated, prone to overthinking, occasionally painting my feelings at 3 a.m. instead of sleeping. I panic compliment and spill paint constantly. I think we'll manage. You really are ridiculous, Oliver Chen. And you're stuck with me now." Diana laughed, and it sounded like hope. Epilogue, 6 months later. Oliver's first solo show opened in March to respectable reviews and decent sales. The waiting portraits resonated with people in ways he hadn't expected. Everyone, it seemed, knew what it felt like to be suspended between what was and what could be. Diana came to the opening, standing slightly apart from the crowd. They'd been careful about their relationship, conscious of the optics. But when a collector asked Oliver about his inspiration, he looked directly at Diana. "I was learning how to wait for something worth waiting for," he said. Later, in his apartment, which Diana had mostly moved into, though she kept her loft for studio space, they lay tangled together on his couch. "I sold 6 paintings tonight," Oliver said, still amazed. You sold 7. Patricia bought the airport one right before closing. 7 paintings? I'm basically famous. Diana laughed. You're basically insufferable. You love it. I do, Diana said, and kissed him. I really, really do. Outside, Providence was moving into spring. But inside Oliver's apartment, they'd already arrived, past the waiting, past the complications, into something that felt a lot like home. Hey, Diana. Thanks for falling apart in front of me. She propped herself up on one elbow, eyebrow raised. That's a weird thing to thank someone for. I just mean, if you hadn't been messy and honest and going through stuff, we might never have talked, never had those 6 a.m. conversations. You would have stayed Professor Ashworth, and I would have stayed the guy who spills paint. And this, he gestured between them, never would have happened. Diana was quiet for a moment. You know what's funny? I spent so long after the divorce trying to be put together, to prove to myself and everyone else that I was fine. But fine was just another way of being alone. You're not alone anymore. No, she agreed, settling back against his chest. I'm really not. Later, much later, Diana would paint a new series about transformation, about breaking and rebuilding, about finding joy in unexpected places. And Oliver would paint portraits of her, catching all the versions of Diana he'd fallen for. The melancholic professor, the 6 a.m. philosopher, the woman learning how to smile again. But that night, they were just 2 people who'd found each other in the wreckage of one life and the tentative beginning of another, proving that sometimes the best love stories start with spilled paint and terrible Thanksgiving dinners and the courage to be honestly, completely, beautifully broken.
I love making these videos for you. If you liked this story, then please like, subscribe to my channel, and switch on the notifications for more entertaining stories. Please also leave a comment for any story suggestions.